Welcome back to Echo Ridge and another episode here in our Max Dupe colony, aka Duplicity. Today, we've got an interesting project for you. Right now, every bionic dupe, and with 160 duplicants on the colony, that is 60 bionic dupes, are using the gunk extractors to get rid of their gunk. If we follow Icky Stew here, you can see that they have 75 out of 200 kilos worth of gear oil, and inversely, their gunk level is up to 62%. Well, once their gunk fills up, they'll need to go get rid of the gunk at the gunk extractor. We take all that gunk and put it into bottles, where it's then transported to the apothecary. The apothecary and a dupe trained in medicine will then turn it back into gear balm. 80 kilos worth of gunk, plus another 200 kilos worth of water. Well, granted, we do get the 200 kilos back in the form of polluted water from cleaning the gunk. It's still a heavy initial outlay of water. We're taking all that polluted water and sending it all the way back here to our water sieves and gets processed and turned back into clean water. But we can avoid that process and give every last bionic dupe on the colony a buff. And that's by using the lubrication station. If we could use crude oil to lubricate all of our bionic dupes, they'll end up with a +3 to morale for having fresh oil. It'll also avoid this painstaking process of creating all that gear bomb. But then we're left with the question, what do we do with all the gunk? For those of you who have recently watched my gunk boiler tutorial, you'll know exactly where we're heading. We're going to boil all that gunk at around 450 degrees and turn it into petroleum and sulfur, which is desperately needed because, well, we're completely out of sulfur that is keeping all of our divergence going. In fact, if I don't hurry, we're going to run out of Sweetle eggs and Grub eggs. And on this colony, they both will go extinct. And while yes, the Grubs and the Sweetles are just an additional form of calories, the Grubs also provide us mud, which we then put into the sludge press to get more water from. But we could also use that petroleum to provide us more power here in the colony. If I click on one of these natural gas generators, you can see in the last 5 cycles, they've been running 98% of the time. Granted, we burn off all the natural gas before we go down to geothermal power, but remember, geothermal power is not infinite. While it may appear so, and it's going to take a long time before we use up all this magma, especially considering we're only adding to it, it's still better to use your renewable resources than it is the ones that you have in limited supply, even if that limitation is 1,000 or so cycles. You may remember from our last episode, I've been clearing out this entire biome, which has been a lot of work, but it's left us with a bunch of oil. Now, if I do start lubricating all of the dupes with this crude oil, it too would eventually run out, unless we start using the oil reservoirs, or ranching slicksters. And while I no doubt will start ranching some slicksters, I can't do too many more critters because, well, the simulation doesn't run quite as well as it used to with 160 duplicants, and every time I ranch a new critter, it only gets a little bit worse. So it's probably better that I just run the oil reservoir. Yeah, it will be a minus to our water supply, but remember, it eventually, once we boil that gunk, will turn into petroleum anyways, and then we'll be able to throw some petroleum generators into a sauna where we'll be able to recapture the polluted water as a byproduct. Not to mention carbon dioxide, which makes me wonder, I could use all that carbon dioxide and send it down to the slicksters, or I could even just throw a petroleum generator sauna in here somewhere. As it stands right now, we're taking all of our junk gases such as carbon dioxide and sending it through the vacuum of space, which is a big waste of resources if we have the capacity to turn them into something for free, like we do with the slicksters. After giving it a few minutes of thought, I think that's what we'll end up doing. I'll throw the petroleum generators in here, and instead of crushing all of that carbon dioxide that's going to be produced from the petroleum generators, I will ship it down to some slicksters. But until I have that reliable supply of carbon dioxide, these two little guys will have to just stay as wild critters. So I'm guessing in a coming episode is when we'll end up with the slickster ranches. For now though, I need to figure out how much crude oil it's going to take to keep 100 bionic dupes lubricated. If we take a look at Jake W here, one of the prod bionic dupes of the colony, we can see that they do use 20 kilos worth of gear oil per cycle. Now they do have a maximum reserve of 200, But that is sort of independent of their gunk, which increases at 25% per cycle, which we then know gives us 200 kilos worth of gunk, which we can then turn into 92% worth of petroleum. So while their reserves allow them to get up to 200 kilos worth of gear oil, and when they get down to zero they start grinding gears, they still need to use the gunk extractor every 4 cycles. But for our crude oil math, all we have to pay attention to is that 20 kilos per cycle requirement. Which means at the end of the day, if we take into account of 100 bionic duplicants, we need 2,000 kilos worth of crude oil every single cycle. Well, if we use an oil well on top of the oil reservoir, we know we'll be able to get 3.3 kilos per second of crude oil out of it. Well, that 3.3333 kilos per second times 600 seconds in a cycle gives us our 2,000 kilos worth of crude oil per cycle required to allow every single bionic duplicant to be able to use the lubrication station. Yes, it will require 1 kilo per second worth of water, but remember, because we're going to be converting all that crude oil to petroleum in our gunk boiler, we're actually going to end up with a net positive of water from the petroleum, from using petroleum generators which produce the polluted water, and also the natural gas that's going to output from the oil well, which is then sent off to the natural gas generators, which also produce more polluted water. In the end, not only are we going to get a net positive to water on the colony, we're also going to be able to give our bionic dupes the +3 to morale buff. Alas, it is time for another duplicant. I did print out a dupe before I started the intro to this video, so let's see what those 2 new dupes are now. Our first dupe of the episode was an easy pick because the ulti has a decreased athletics, and even though they start with an athletics bonus because of the advanced medical booster, I'd rather just steer away. So welcome to the colony, our newest rancher and duplicant number 160 in Vertigo HD. For our next dupe, I do not like the decreased excavation and machinery, so it's going to be another Sonyar. In this case, Sonyar is going to do just about everything around the colony, and they won't have that nasty debuff to machinery or excavation. Welcome to the colony, duplicant number 161, Tad. Now as we start this gunk boiler build, I highly recommend you watch the gunk boiler tutorial that just released a few days ago on this channel, as it'll give you a head start in understanding what we're doing and why. First thing to decide is the location, and I think it's going to be in here. While this is sort of awkwardly shaped, I like this area for a couple of reasons. One, we already have a heat spike here, and it's a fairly long heat spike with a renewable source of magma. But we also have the geothermal power plant, which means I could throw another thermal aqua tuner in here to be used for the cooling loop in our gunk boiler. The only issue is I have some heavy watt conductive wire sort of cutting through this area. So step 1 is going to be moving this heavy watt wire around. Now this is the heavy watt conductive wire that connects the 2 sides of our colony, but I'm thinking that's not such a big deal here. Not a lot of dupes traverse this area here, so it might be beneficial just to run the line straight across. And that way I can remove everything from here all the way down up to our steam turbines. And actually I just realized I can't get in there. For some reason I thought I had left a nice door, but apparently I did not. I also think it would be nice if I was able to move this around. So what if I start filling this area in with regular bricks? And then I can expand out our vacuumed out area. That'll give me more room to be able to work with for the boiler. Well, this is going to take a little while. Here come the dupes to remove all the heavy watt conductive wire. I'm going to have to leave this into place just because this is all vacuumed out. And that's actually going to be a pain in the tuchus to remove. I suppose I could build a new wall right here. In fact, what I can do is seal this up, remove this, and then put more tiles in to push all the carbon dioxide over, and then build a nice fresh wall. And I think I'll top it off, let's say right here. After a small month of Sundays, I was able to block all this in. I still got a little bit more on the top, but we're expanding it out this way and a little bit on this way to sort of square it up a little bit. It'll give me more room for activities. I don't like how this is sort of uneven, but more room is more room. I'm just going to end up having to put some intermediary ladders in here while we're doing our building, but it also means I can start getting rid of all of this abyssalite. The only thing I have to be careful of is this little area here, and I will continue to corner build these tiles until it's sealed. I'm not worried about this one here. The next step is going to be getting the heat spike where we want it. Now, you may wonder, well, Echo, this heat spike's already being used for the geothermal power. The door that we use to control the thermals on the Gunk boiler only opens and shuts a very, very small amount of time, so I'm not worried about the heat draw from this spike. So I am going to move it up and over. Now, I plan on making this Gunk boiler a little bit larger because I want to see how cool I can get everything down. And oh look, it's time for another dupe. This Eduardo starts with an extreme digging booster, which gives them the +2 to athletics and +5 to digging. Their only negatives are they're not a good farmer, nor do they know how to cook. That's not too big of a deal here. Welcome to Duplicant number 162, Leo L46. Likewise, elsewhere around the colony, I have also been getting rid of some abyssalite ever so slowly. There's some tasks I have to do around it. For instance, I have to drop all this water so I can keep clearing all this out. This abyssalite here sort of protects our wheezewort radiation, but I suppose I can build around that. That's not too big of a deal. Remember, I don't want the duplicants coming in here to fertilize the wheezeworts. I suppose I can just do something like this. In other news, I've started liquid locking. I'm going to put in a double liquid lock here. This entire area down here, I have a couple of pumps somewhere that are slowly vacuuming this whole place out. What I'm probably going to do, once we get all this stuff picked up, in fact, it'd be a lot quicker if I did it now, is I'm going to seal this entire place off. That way I can control the environment in here and grab some of that beautiful natural gas. This entire area will be a crude oil buffer tank. In fact, once this area gets a little bit lower, since it's all liquid, we do have pumps pumping it all out. I will seal it in right up through here and then all the way across. Oh, what did you guys do? Nazgul, Bodwan. I suppose about the easiest way is just to deconstruct this, and then they can climb down through the door. Now can you climb down? You can climb there, but you can't go all the way down? You do it in a rocket. Well, ladder it is. They have all the materials there. They'll be fine. But it looks like it is time to start building these window tiles all the way up. I'm going to build a small framework for how I think this is going to look. It's going to take up most of this area. The difficult part is going to be keeping the scaffolding around. But the general framework is not too different from a petroleum boiler. I need a counterflow heat exchanger. I need a heat plate and a little bit bigger of a reservoir. I suppose it makes sense to have a ladder going up through here. And then I can build the reservoir right here. Oh, this is going to be beautiful. And because we're working in a vacuum, I don't have to worry about sealing in that heat spike. Checking our diamond supplies, we still have 52 tons. So no problem building this window tile heat spike much higher up. For some reason, some of these ladders are built out of sedimentary rock, which has a melting point of 927, so I need to be a little bit more careful. Why were we using sedimentary rock? Let me go rebuild all these ladders using igneous rock instead. Oh, look at that. It's molten lead. Materials matter, folks. So one disadvantage of building this heat spike up out here is the fact is it used to be sealed off. If ever it comes a day where I accidentally destroy the vacuum in here, it's going to be a very, very bad day because all that environment will interact with this window tile. I cannot seal this in unless I build another double liquid lock right here. Is that the way? Yeah, I think it's the way. Probably a little bit safer. I just realized if I put the reservoir here, I'd have a nice long length for my counterflow heat exchanger, but not a lot of room for my sulfur condenser. So I think I have to raise this up a little bit more. And we have to make it even Steven, so I have to do all of this as well. That's not too bad though. Our liquid lock is going in here. Can we not forget about the oil over here? Oh, perfect. And now I'll deconstruct this, flip it around, and fill this one up. And another trap tube notification. Look at the smile on Manchester's face. Come on, Josh. You shouldn't be that happy about being stuck in there. And a half a cycle later, we're already putting the roof on this part. This one's coming next. This would be absolutely a breeze if I could play on ×3 speed. I have put the automation switch in to open the door. I'm sure some of you were hoping that I would not, but I did. So now we can build this window tile all the way up. I can also build our diamond temperature heat plate. And then our thermosensor, say right here. Connect it with automation. Everything made out of steel and diamond. Perfect. How did you guys get trapped this time? Come out. Oh, because that's not done yet. Uh-oh. Well, there's a little blob there. That should be okay, right? Let's go out through here. Nobody push that crude oil over, please. It's protecting an important area. Out of a preponderance of caution, I am going to seal in this side with the insulated tile. I'm also going to do it over here. In fact, now that that is in place, I can access both sides, which means I can get rid of this door and this heavy watt conductive joint plate, and I'll seal it up right here and keep going up. This Sonyar starts with a suit training booster, which you know I love. Not only do they get the +5 athletics, but they also get the exosuit athletics penalty reduction, and the durability on the suit lasts a little bit longer. Welcome to Duplicant number 163, Jesse. I've put in the liquid pump and we've started putting in the pipes of where we're going to be taking all the petroleum. It's not too bad compared to the other couple of lines that we're going to need. Come all the way up through here and then all the way into our industrial sauna. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of room because the petroleum generators are 4 tiles high. Luckily for us, this liquid reservoir is not being used for very much. I don't even think I need it anymore, to tell you the truth. We haven't really been using it. It's not holding any crude oil, so I'm going to deconstruct it. Oh, wait a minute. It doesn't look like I can do that. It is holding surplus, and it makes sure that the metal refinery is ready to go as soon as they finish one. Oh well, times are tough. We're deconstructing it. Never mind. Instead of creating more work, I'm just going to deconstruct these tiles here. And we'll put the petroleum generators in here somewhere. The other 2 lines that I was referring to are the gunk coming in and the crude oil going up. I have a line here, except that might be a flipped bridge. Man, I made a few weeks without flipping a bridge. But the crude oil is going to be coming from all the way over here. Once it makes it over here, we can then go all the way up. We're going to cut across and through here, continue going up. Will we make it to this point? And now all I have to do is get through all of this and make it up through here. Speaking of which, that oil is going to be warm, so this all needs to be insulated anyways. Best strategy is just going to be a little bit of weaving, and then we'll come down here. Look at that, we're almost there. Not too many issues. Okay, that's an issue. Alright, so a couple more bridges, and definitely we'll have them flip the right way. And we've made it. I can actually see our pipe. Now let me just replace all this with insulated. Wait a minute, was that pipe that way the first time? Maybe I actually didn't flip a pipe. Look, it's been a long day. Now I just have to do that exact same thing with the gunk. It's okay, it's still much improved from the spaghetti of past. First, let me find all my gunk extractors. I don't have any over here, so all of them are right here. So now instead of going into the bottle emptier, we are going to send it down. The gunk pipe was a little bit more interesting. All of our gunk is only coming out at 37 degrees, so on the good note, we don't have to use insulated. On the bad note, the spaghetti is real this time. We're going through the woods, down through here, some weird discombobulation here, until we get rid of all of this salt water. And then we come down, we will once again put some bridges in our spawn supply, and then it makes it all the way down to our drop off here. Now I am not going to connect this to the vent yet for obvious reasons. We don't want any gunk in here until it's nice and hot. Ooh, and I certainly don't want it flashing there in the pipe, so I will make these out of insulated. There we go, that's another step completed. As for the counterflow exchanger, it looks something like this. I still have a lot to build in here, but we're going to be able to get some very nice thermals out of this. I am making them too wide. That way our dupes can come in here and do maintenance if need be. But I also want to get one more layer in here because right now the petroleum comes through here and falls. Whereas I think it'd be really nice to go down one more level. It's not a big deal building right on top of this, right? It's just a minor volcano. Just in case, I will use obsidian. So the last leg of the petroleum will come down through here. Give me another 45 minutes and I'll give you another update. Oh, wait a minute, the oil. Overflowing that would have been very bad. Oh, dear goodness, like it was over here. It's okay. I managed to get a hold of it before the oil went into our water system. And of course, it is time to print another dupe as well. No rest for the weary. I definitely don't want this Stila because they start with a -3 to athletics, so we'll grab yet another Sonyar. Welcome to the colony, Duplicant number 164, Squishy. We're almost done with the infrastructure for the counterflow exchanger, which means I should probably get power in. I'm also going to need to get an oil line to be able to fill this up. We don't have petroleum, so I'm going to try what I suggested in the tutorial and flashing a whole bunch of crude oil into petroleum. I also put a power transformer all the way down at the bottom here, and I will pull power off of it, except it's going to have to be made out of steel, which is probably a good thing. We'll grab lead at the beginning here, except I'm going to make it go down one level, and you'll see why here in a second. I'd rather the petroleum not exchanging temperature with the steel conductive wires. And there's our first two power connections. Unfortunately, our conduction room is not going to be able to be as big as it was in the tutorial, but that shouldn't be a big deal at all. And I just realized I was going to have the gunk just come in flat. That would not be the correct way. I need to counterflow it all the way up. So I need to reroute this line. I really don't want to bring it past the heat spike. So I think I will bring it down this way and then hop over here. Now once again, I'm going to have a problem with refined metals. I don't have a lot of ores left on this planetoid. I like using copper, but we only have about a ton left of it. I do have a lot of gold though. But what's the melting point of a radiant gold pipe? 1,000. That should work okay. I'll queue up a bunch of gold and give me a little bit and I'll get that counterflow exchanger done. We're starting to run into a small issue with the amount of reed fiber it takes to keep up 100 suits. As you can see, we have a small stack of worn Atmo suits. I didn't really give that much of a thought, and by the time I did, I figured, well, we have a huge surplus and this one Dreco ranch might be able to keep up. Well, I was definitely wrong. So I planted our old friend the thimblereeds right over here. They're now part of the polluted water being sent off to our puff ranches, which are doing pretty good, by the way. You can see this first one's already stocked with 4 puffs and a puff prince as designed, and the other 2 are coming online now, and already for that, we're up over 1,600 kilos worth of slime, so our mushroom farm isn't doing too shabby either. You'll know in an episode or two if I go back to complaining about reed fiber if I need to plant more, but remember the thimblereeds only take 2 cycles to grow, so with 2 plants, that's 1 reed fiber every single cycle, and I don't think we're going through 1 suit every cycle, so this should be good. This is the progress we have, and I'm pretty sure this one's going to end up as 2 videos once it hits the editing room floor. I'm going to see what I can do to try otherwise, but if it's up over an hour, I don't really have much of a choice. We still have a little bit more work to finish this, but then we have the whole thing about starting it up. So I hope you enjoyed this preamble to what's going to be our gunk boiler. Not to mention that I have another little trick up my sleeve with it. So as usual, I'm looking forward to hearing what you think in the comments below. And until next time, much love, happy gaming, and I'll talk to you soon.